it is. Okay. So I am in conversation with Dr. James Brown. For some reason, well, whatever. It's all good on my end. And so we are today about to revisit this idea of the chakra system. And last week we talked about the first three, I do believe. You have the names for them. I'm not that great at it. So can we do like a quick review of the chakras, just for the people who may be tuning in or listening to this for the very first time? Can we just do they're called energy centers, right?
That is correct. That is correct. They are a part of our being. They are energy centers. And this was codified and, how can I say, studied, codified, and put into a complete system of understanding, enlightenment, and transformation thousands of years ago by the people of African ancestry who traveled up from Northeast Africa over to Southern Asia, to Southwest Asia, the place that we call India. So traditionally they name 7, but actually there are about 14. And just for reference, this is a small volume, probably only costs about $18 or so, but it's a good primer on understanding the system and getting started without hurting yourself. Because as we're saying, that these are energy centers. And so part of the work, not part of the work, a lot of the work of yoga is to increase the energy and circulate it through the body so that it does go through these psychic centers, through these chakras. And if you go on the internet and you Google the chakras, a lot of times you'll see images. And the image, it'll be a lotus, and on the inside, there will be 2 figures, usually a male and a female. There will be some symbols, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those have significant meaning. But these psychic centers, several are inherited from our animal ancestry. And it is what drives us. It is what gives us the urge to survive, the urge to thrive. But if not properly regulated, which is the reason for the other 8 chakras from the top down, to kind of regulate this animal behavior, then if you just go around and try to activate these things on your own, you will get results. But the results will not be what you want to expect. So for instance, you know, there's this whole thing about using sexual tantras, and you're going to increase the energy in the quote unquote, the sex chakra. Well, you raise that energy. And if you've got proclivities in a certain direction, you know, that will all it does, because energy just drives and moves, motivates and animates. It does not have a value system. It just does. So if you increase the energy down there, you might find that all of a sudden the libido is increased, and now you might have a tendency to overindulge and waste your life force, or you may have proclivities that you haven't really purified. And so now all of a sudden you want to use this energy inappropriately in all sorts of ways that you would not have before. So part of the work of energizing the chakras is to also to make sure that the higher ones govern the lower ones, that a system of values is put in place, that you're recognizing that you're using this energy to grow yourself from a human being to a divine being, that you're always keeping the connection of the highest chakra, Sahasrara, in contact with God, so that you're getting this, so that you're making sure that the energy that you're bringing up is going to be in a useful manner that's going to help you and to help others. So these psychic centers are just sources of energy. And within, there's two things that happen when you awaken it. And that's the reason for the symbol of the male and the female, the god and the goddess. The god represents that there's going to be information that will be at your disposal. You'll all of a sudden have thoughts, epiphanies, understandings, and concepts that you were not aware of before, but they will come to you from within. It's not from a book. It's coming from the stored within.
Yeah.
Along with that knowledge is going to become the energy on how to use that knowledge, on how to behave in a certain kind of way in certain situations. That's the goddess. That's the power that she brings. The symbols, usually there's a downward pointing triangle representing the female genitalia, and then there's an upward pointing staff somewhere around the triangle or in the triangle, which represents the male. And what it's saying is that the symbol is, in order to rouse this energy, there's got to be a certain kind of desire, because desire is the kundalini. It is the rousing energy. And so in the meditation that you're going to use to rouse the energy, in your meditation, you've got to be able to see yourself benefiting in a pleasurable way from some way. And that's where the desire comes from.
Okay.
And so the petals around it would also give you an idea of how many mantras are associated with that. They're called bija, B-I-J-A. And so those are words of power. They are sound, which have no meaning, but they have a certain vibration. And so each chakra has a certain number of those seed sounds. You've got the symbols, you've got the visualizations. And so if you study them, you'll have a whole encyclopedia of, what's involved with this and how you can access it. But you have to be careful because, people can really go take a left turn, so to speak, rousing this energy without proper guidance.
Right. Now this is really, I love the way you bring this into focus for us, because one of the things, I've been a meditator for a while, and I find myself, like I tell people, I just know things, right? Things just, they come to me, and they don't come to me with a full backstory all the time, but I know them, right?
Yeah.
I just know it through and through. And so I love the way that you've tied this awareness into moving energy through the centers. Although I am not conscious all the time of moving this through, but I do know that through some of my breathing exercises, what I'm doing is I'm focusing on breathing with my whole body instead of just with my nose. So as you talk about this, and right use is what I'm hearing, right use and respecting that this power or this energy is there to guide and assist, but also to temper it with right use, integrity. What else? I just think that, sometimes in this, because of the culture that we live in, sometimes people can sully their own energy without being aware that they're doing so.
Exactly, because their level of consciousness hasn't caught up to the power that they're bringing up. You know, it's like, you know, for example, say World War II, we start to investigate nuclear energy. What was the first thing we used it for? Rather than trying to, you know, power cities, rather than, you know, trying to find medical uses for this. No, let's kill somebody. it was the first use, you know. So if you haven't elevated your consciousness to a certain level, you're using this like a child would, and you're using it usually in a destructive manner, if not against others, against yourself. And that's the whole problem with having this tremendous power. You're raising it, but you haven't worked on, as you say, integrity. You haven't worked on your character. So when this energy is raised, it's going to enlighten you and put you in God's plan and purpose and assist others and transform. No. I think I'm going to use this power because I see an opportunity and I can make $1 million here. And it doesn't matter that, you know, it's going to injure several people along the way. I'm going to have to lie, cheat, and steal, but the way is open for me to get it. So I'm going to get it. And so that's the problem with having this power without having, as you say, the integrity or the elevated level of consciousness to will the power appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, but this, I say often that in this culture, even God is used as a commodity. They will sell any and everything.
Be careful now. You're going to step on a whole lot of toes.
But it's the truth. It is the
I agree
truth.
with you. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Give me your seed money, but, you know, show how much faith you have in God by giving me $20,000 because I need a $50 million jet. So, and if you plant the seed with me, God's going to bless you. Oh, well, all right.
Right. But you know what, even more insidious is that, you know, there is an effort to keep people dependent, to let them not realize their highest potential, because we want to continue. People want to continue to suck from them. It's as if we've got energy vultures, money vultures who continuously have a vested interest in keeping people dependent. And
so I like that. And just referencing the topic, the chakra. So somebody has a very active and energized throat chakra. They have the ability to speak with mellifluous tones. They can organize words in such a way that it's just honey going in somebody's ears. And they can use that energy of the throat chakra to manipulate everybody else. But because they don't have the consciousness to say, you know, let's build some hospitals, let's build some independent schools where we can teach our children outside of what they're learning in regular schools. Let's build some health and wellness centers. Let's build some centers for our elderly. Let's do all these other things that we could. No. Let's just make ourselves wealthy and buy ourselves the toys that wealth can bring.
Yeah. That's the American way.
Well, I think more so that's the human way. America is, I would say, is the tip of the spear. But all over the world, you find these people that are just able to manipulate others and bend them to their will.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about, you know, I don't know about how others are, but I am assuming that if you've got a race of people or a group of people who are studying and open to chakras and this idea of oneness, if it becomes their way of life, I would assume and hope that that is not their motive.
But look at how India treats its darker people and also treats its women. Now, this is where the system is. Now, of course, it has been affected by the Aryans coming in from the north who have perpetrated crimes against the originators of this system. So they call them Dalits. You know, they're the untouchables because they're the blackest ones there, relegated to the lower level. And then look at all of the femicide against women in India. So I'm just saying, so I think this is more of a human predilection. You know, America is just the paramount belly of the beast, but human beings, you know, have just done horrific things, you know, for quite a long time.
Okay. Okay, so I hear you. Okay, so now in order to move up beyond just the base chakras, we go from, is this what we do, the base chakras, the bottom three, is that based on how we maneuver in the physical world, and then the upper ones based on what happens to us on a mental spiritual level, or how does that transition occur?
Intuitively, you categorize that perfectly. So the lower ones are our animal inheritance, and we really don't have to do much because we're born with those, and over a short period of time, they all become active. You know, it's like the Manipura, and it is our source of sovereignty and independence. So by 2-year-old, the children hit what? The terrible twos, where they're having their ability to say no, meaning now they've learned that they are, I'm separate from you somehow. But before then, they didn't realize that there was a me and then there's a you. But now all of a sudden I see that. And so, no, I'm choosing to do what I want to do. And then, you know, you're used to feeding them. And at some point they decide, I'm taking the spoon and I can feed myself. You take their hands when they're young and help them to walk across the street. All of a sudden now they don't want to hold your hand. I can do this on my own. So that chakra comes online automatically.
Okay.
The higher ones that regulate it, that's the work that we have to put in to get the energy to those areas. But you have to be initiated to understand how that's supposed to work. And so part of what religion does, all of them, you're trying to get this connection to God. You know, we recognize that there's something greater than us, and we want to attach ourselves to that. Well, that's the role of the Sahasrara and the Guru Chakra, where we can keep receiving instructions from God and keep our connection to God. Then there's the Ajna Chakra. Some people want to call it the third eye, and they put a light in the center of the forehead, whatever. But its mantra is the universal one that most of us as initiates learn in this system: Om or Ong or Ong or Aing. It is, it's what's called the resonant energy of the universe. And so that's the one that keeps us connected to God, but keeps us also connected to everything else. It is the center of our unity and our oneness. So when you work on those, then before you work on the others, you've got a certain level of commitment and understanding and energy in those centers, so that when you start raising the energy, you don't go off the deep end. You don't all of a sudden start to decide that, I'm raising this Manipura energy and I'm just going to be the dictator of the world. I'll be the richest man in the world. I'll buy a company and I'm going to lay off 11,000 people my very first day.
Mm.
You have other kinds of thoughts that come to you when you start to raise that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it would seem that you would raise your level of compassion and be more attached to others rather than just yourself. So last week when I talked to you, I was telling you about I was going to the workshop by Joe Dispenza.
Yes.
And I was trying to figure out which of his books I had read. And it was the book, You Are the Placebo.
Okay.
And so when I went into the workshop, he does a lot of scientific explanation about the way that our bodies hold memory of just about everything, but especially trauma, but that our bodies are habitual machines. And even when we try or think that we're going to do something different, if we're not changing our bodies, then that body has a tendency to want to pull us back into what is common or what is regular.
Right.
It's almost as if he says that our bodies get addicted to certain ways of being. And so we have to figure out how to bypass or override the physical with the mental in order for us to achieve or to get the life that we so desire for ourselves.
Well, that's part of using the visualizations in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to see yourself behaving differently in the situation that the trauma occurred. And by repeating that over and over again, I see myself now not running away afraid. I see myself being able now to stand in front and speak in such a way and behave in such a way that I'm not the child of 8 years old that got abused or that got beaten or that got hit by that car or got bit by that dog. I'm now an adult and I can see myself in the situation behaving differently by imagining over and over and over again, I'm behaving differently. I'm replacing the old memory with a new memory. Mm-hmm. But you have to do it long enough each time and often enough, because as you mentioned, those memories are deep-seated, especially the ones that happen to us from 0 to 8 or 9 years old. Mm-hmm. They're deep-seated and they drive us as adults in very subliminal, very unconscious ways. So you've got to be, but the point is, to your point, see your body, see yourself behaving differently. I'm actually acting differently at this moment in time where the trauma occurred. By doing that, I can erase the memory of how I behaved before, and I don't have these automatic responses and reactions when the situation comes up or similar situations come up again.
Mm. And so that's really a lot of times people want instant results. Like, I prayed about this, or we think that once we've changed our mind, whatever it may be, and it may not be something that rises to the level that we talk about, such as trauma. It could be that we are the the mentality that many of us in our community grew up with is that last hired, first fired, disposable, lack mentality that has permeated our community. As a matter of fact, is so common that even before somebody gets it out of their mouths, we can say it over to ourselves as if it's a mantra that we've learned. And so there is a undoing or a breaking from that that needs to happen so that people can then have a different expectation, because we get what we expect.
What you're talking about is breaking that idea of victimization and being a victim. We can acknowledge the wrong that was done to us as a community and understand, though, we have the power to change all of this. We no longer have to be victims. And we demonstrate sometimes in workshops how holding a certain thought in your mind, holding a certain memory in your mind, and how the weakness that pervades your body that we can demonstrate, and how the opposite, holding a joyful memory, holding a joyful thought empowers you. And so it's very, very, very unreasonable to keep reciting these ideas and thoughts of victimization, or letting Hollywood produce images that we spend our money to and come out feeling sad about, feeling bad about, instead of feeling empowered, seeing ourselves overcome, transcend, be victorious, and be prosperous. Those are the images that vitalize the life force, that give you the power and the energy to act differently in life. If you keep indulging the thoughts and the ideas and the images that disempower you, that put you at the behest of opponents more powerful than you, or situations where you have no control over, as you say, continue to expect the same kind of outcome, because that's what you're creating over and over and over again. You want to create something different? Change your mindset, change your convictions, change your opinions, and don't go around believing in stuff. Go around knowing I have the ability to make this happen.
Well, but you also have the people who are of the mindset that if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat your history. I mean, that's another thing that just rolls out of our mouths.
Yes, and that is very true, except that most of those proponents think our history started with slavery.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
We have 25,000 years of history prior to this blip in our timeline of 400 years of enslavement. We have 25,000. So why don't they focus on, the 25,000 years of civilization and ownership of the world, ownership of the globe, before focusing on, but again, there are some people who are simply ignorant, but then there are some people who are willing to say what they're paid to say.
So I don't know a whole lot about the Kanye Kyrie thing that's going on right now. I'm going to put that out there. But it seems as though every time someone tries to give an account of history prior to enslavement, people are very quick to say, oh, you weren't the original Jews, or you weren't this, or you were not that. They make it seem as though even Cleopatra was white. just with a tan. So you've got all of these different like debates around what our true history was. And being that we are here and disconnected from the land that, that produced this greatness, people can give you any type of narrative. I remember in elementary school when we talked about Africa, being shown things that were, those pygmy pictures of people living in the bush and them saying how lucky you are to be in the country where you are now.
I have actually even heard some people who have very large contents of melanin in their skin say the same thing. Wow, it's good, no matter the fact that the Middle Passage was really some rough waters that we had to come across. But look at us, how we live in this wonderful country now. But again, I don't look to people who are not historians to tell me what history is. I don't look to entertainers to tell me what history is. I go to historians so that I at least have somebody who's qualified to talk to me about history.
And I agree. But I will tell you that our history in this country has been co-opted and switched around to continue this legacy of demonizing our past and holding up in our faces something that they perceive to be far better. I do not have such notions, but what I do know is what I have learned, and I have learned how to push back on the narrative that is presented, because imperialism and colonization has wreaked havoc on this planet.
Absolutely.
And so unless we really are able to call, I'll say, to call a spade a spade.
Yes, ma'am. Right. Right.
We won't get at some of the things that we have learned. But I do know when we talk about, I tell people often that one of the best things that ever happened to me was not only that, one, I got a chance to go to school in another country, but then when I had the opportunity, I went to Greece so that I could see the cradle of civilization, and then I hopped on a plane for little or no money and went over to Egypt and saw that Greece had copied what was in Egypt already,
and had copied it poorly, because
yes.
When you go to Greece and you go to Rome, what you truly see are ruins.
Yes.
When you go to Egypt, you see full structures that were still lasting after 3,000 years, and the Greeks and the Romans, it's rubble. You have to imagine where most of the wall was. Imagine they've got 4 columns, and now I have to imagine where the rest of the temple is.
Yes.
But you're right.
Yes.
Being able to be fully equipped so that when the narrative of one side's supremacy is pushed, you have the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of how to push back. The issue, though, is unless you're in a media that you can really have some control over, they have the ability to spin, even in front of people's eyes, what you're saying, such that you look You don't look your best, shall we say. You don't look your brightest. You don't look your wisest, because they have the ability to control the images. And
Yeah.
again, we're still dependent upon, we're still waiting for others to tell our story. We're now starting to get our ability to tell our own story, and we can see that what comes out is completely different from what we've been fed. And we need to keep nurturing ourselves and our young people on these stories that are told by us for us.
Yes, yes. So so we have I love the way that this conversation kind of goes in and out and around about. And this, you know, one of the things that I know is through meditation, through opening up these energy systems, what we do is we build for ourselves a more secure self.
Yeah.
So that in the midst of the things that go on around us, we are not so easily swayed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's amazing. I had a Native American friend of mine who told me that even an oak bends when the wind blows, but that also that same oak tree has a solid foundation that goes deep. And so unless we are about the business of cultivating the foundation,
Absolutely.
we will be blown about by whatever.
That is 1000% correct, which is why our meditation practices to center and cultivate that peace within, because most of this universe that we can't see, called dark energy, dark matter, it is undifferentiated. It is still at rest. It is our idea. It is what we inculcate inside of ourselves. This ability to be anything that I need to be. But in order to be able to do that, I've got to be nothing. I've got to be no thing. No thing means I am at complete balance and harmony, at rest, at peace. That's why almost every religious practice has some kind of idea of peace, whether it's Hatep, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Nirvana, this whole idea. You have to have that core, that oak that's within us is peace. And once you can maintain your peace as the storm is going all about and blowing the leaves and the grass and the bushes, and you're standing there, now I have an understanding of what I need to be in this particular time. And I can either be the warrior or the nurturer. I can be the lecturer. I can be the sage. I can be the artist, or I can be the teacher. I can be anything, but first I've got to be at peace to see clearly, what do I need to be? What's the solution for me at this point in time?
Yeah, yeah. And that's so good. And for those of you that are listening that, you know, probably thinking like, I don't have time for that stuff. I would challenge you to think, to broaden your idea about meditation. When I was younger, you know, one of the most meditative practices for me was washing dishes. And I was, you know, I could slip into a different space within, just from, you know, just from bringing my attention into that process. You can do moving meditation, you can walk in the woods, you can but it is a state of being, it's a state of consciousness, and not necessarily where you have to sit in the corner. And while it may be nice to go, it's not necessary.
There, I have to piggyback on to yours. Mine is vacuuming. A hum and just the back and forth movement can put me into trance, and my mind will be someplace else as the body just does one thing over and over and over again, with the
Yes.
sound drowning out everything else. But so
Yes.
there are many ways, but you still have to have a regular practice. And to your point, you don't have time not to meditate, because life is coming fast and furious.
Yes.
And you better be able to have some armor that you can put on to protect you, because it'll never stop. Your
Mhm.
ability to handle it should get better as you get older.
Yes. Yes. You would think. You would
It
think.
should.
Yes. But if you're always living at the, at the outskirts and never developing this core, people will still respond from that level of awareness, as opposed to the security that you develop through this work.
Yeah, because the world is going to keep putting you in reactive mode.
Mm-hmm.
When you do your meditative practice, you're putting yourself in creative mode, such that a lot of the things that would be coming at you don't necessarily have to come, because I'm creating different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Some things we're destined to go through because it's necessary to have some adversity in order to grow your character.
Yes.
However,
yes.
a lot of the stuff comes because we simply made a choice somewhere where we had an opportunity to go left and we went right. This is what's going to lie on us. But if you're meditating often enough, long enough, you'll see when the crossroad comes, the road I need to go to is left. It ain't right.
Right. And sometimes before it even gets there. Because I mean, sometimes it's just
Yes,
like, is this it? And
I can
so
see
I
it coming.
found myself this morning telling everybody, I said, I'm saying like Dr. Brown says, be like water. Bruce Lee through Dr. Brown,
Right.
be like water. So good. So good. All right. Anything do we we didn't even talk about all the chakras, not that we could, but I appreciate the book. The book was titled Light on Kundalini Yoga, right?
Right.
And do I need to look for that by author, or is that
You can look by author, or you can look by title. I know it's available on Amazon. It's also available on a webpage called Taui Network, TAUI Network.
TAUI
Right, Taui
Network?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this.
Always a pleasure.
I truly appreciate it.
If the weather holds up, I'll see you right from the same spot next Thursday.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Blessings to you.
Peace.
Peace. Oh, you guys, that was good. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, thank you. And I will see you tomorrow. Perhaps. Yeah. But I'm here every morning. So I'll see you then.